All right, well, welcome back. Did you guys miss me? It's been a while. That's what I thought. I'm not even a little bit. Okay. All right, so we have a lot of stuff to cover today. Some of it needs to be discussion type stuff, some of it needs to be lecture type stuff, and some of it needs to be you guys reading type stuff. So we're not going to talk about Gatsby anymore. There'll be questions about Gatsby on your midterm whenever that happens, in a week or 2 weeks. I would like for it to be in a week, but I'm not entirely convinced that we can get there. So we would have scheduled this more tightly in a usual year, but obviously the schedule this year is pretty abnormal. So I could give you an exam on what we've done so far, but that would be a fairly thin exam, I think. So we'll see what we get to. So today's topic is, well, this bell skid. So a couple of topics today. These topics are going to lead us into our next reading, which is a play. And our next set of critical lenses and theories. So let's see. Okay, so this is a discussion that we need to have sort of as preamble for the stuff that I need you to read. So gender versus sex, are you guys, and I use the word guys again, it's particularly troublesome right now. Are you folks familiar with what this means? The gender or sex debate. I see no heads moving in any. Okay, so no one's willing to say that they don't know what it means, but also no one's willing to say that they do. Have I got that right? Okay, I've got some agreement now, so I know that your heads can move. All right, then it seems like probably that means that we should have this discussion. This one is a brief one, this one is much longer. So, gender and sex are not the same thing. A couple of heads nodding, okay, just making sure. Okay, so sex is just that. The chromosomes, some of you guys haven't taken biology, so maybe this doesn't mean anything either. The chromosomes you were born with, XX or XY, that's it. Gender is a lot more complicated. So that's where this leads to biology or culture. So we're talking about, and right now, some of you at least are wondering, why are we having this discussion in English class? And if you're not wondering that, then now you are, and you should be. But, so this is easy, simple, we can dispense with it. Gender, this means male or female, or in some cultures, other options. Now, what these mean, where they come from, is sex comes from biology. Straightforward. And then that's the end of that discussion. Gender, a lot more complicated. Some of it comes from biology and some of it comes from culture. The problem is that we don't exactly know where we should draw the line on that. So can we say, well, we can, and I'm going to, that boys and girls are not the same, just to like boil things down to their essentials. In what way, and we'll just keep this in a sort of binary phrasing of discussion for now, just for simplicity's sake, and we'll acknowledge that other non-binary genders are possible, non-binary meaning not one or the other. But if we want to simplify for the sake of this preliminary discussion, we can say that boys and girls are different in several ways. But what ways are they exactly? Can somebody give me an example of a way in that men and women or boys and girls are different? I find it hard to believe that no one has ever thought about this before and that this is a new concept. You did agree that they are different. You all agreed to this premise. So I'm taking your reticence to provide me with an example as you're hesitant to say something because you think you're going to be wrong. Yeah, Robin. Taller, yeah. So that we can say, well, let's just say size. Size is going to fit under biology, right? Not under culture. Everyone okay with that? So men are taller, yes, all of the time? No, of course not. But overall, on average, men are taller and heavier. So, yeah, Abby?
Facial hair?
Yeah. Facial hair, primary sexual characteristics, right? All of that stuff can go under biology. Is there anything else that goes under biology that you can think of in terms of differences? So who's normally associated, men or women, with child rearing? Yeah, not a trick question. Yeah, women are generally associated with child rearing, and is that culture or is that biology?
Biology.
Biology, why?
Because like the women have like certain organs.
They have the wombs, yeah. Yeah, so child rearing, we can say the possession of a womb does not mean that women necessarily have to be associated with raising of children, but there is a biological correspondence to that. So we could maybe like move that over a bit. Right, it's not all the way on the biology side, like facial hair and size is, but it's definitely toward that side. Anybody get a sense of what I'm framing here now? Okay, so Is there anything you could think of that you'd be willing to say is purely on the cultural side in terms of the difference between men and women or between boys and girls? Abby?
Women weren't allowed to wear pants for a really long time.
Okay, so I'm trying to abstract this into a broader concept. So we can say clothing for sure. Are there any biological reasons for differences in clothing? Not really, no. I mean, different shapes, I suppose, so you have different shapes of, but mostly, I mean, Abby and I are kind of wearing the same shirts, so a lot of those, well, it's not the same, but it's a similar idea. So a lot of those things are not current in our culture at this moment. But on the other hand, I also will not wear, you know, the pants that Jesslyn is wearing. And there's no biological reason that I shouldn't. Right? There's nothing in my collection of chromosomes that would encourage me to not wear yoga pants, right? That is 100% a cultural thing. And I can be aware of that and still not want to wear yoga pants, right? You can be aware of those things, but it is helpful to be aware of what things are cultural. Now, let's think about things that are more characteristics. So clothing, fashion, all of that. In our culture, quite often women wear makeup, and most often men do not. As something that, you know, is inherently not biological, right? You're not born with it, so it's clearly not this. There's nothing in female brains that make them susceptible to the urge to wear makeup that is not there in male brains, right? Male wear makeup in other cultures at different times in history, right? So that is a purely cultural thing. Now, it is important that we are aware of these things. As much as when you say them out loud, it's obvious, right? Like it's really obvious thing. You're not born with makeup. It's obviously not natural and biological. I'm not telling you not to wear a makeup or that your boyfriend should. What I'm saying is that it's okay to live within your culture. In fact, it's impossible not to. But we need to be aware that some of what we perceive as the differences between men and women or boys and girls are completely cultural. And I think that I want to suggest that most of the differences that we think about are a lot more about culture than they are about biology. So, what if I said, what about personality traits? What are boys like and what are girls like? What are men like and what are women like? Oh, that's tricky, isn't it? So, who's more violent? Well, you had to say it. Yeah, obviously. Is that biology or is it culture?
Culture.
Are you sure? Probably. But I'm not sure. I'm not certain of that. I'm not certain that there isn't some biology involved there. If you think about testosterone and things like that, right? Like there could be some biology there, But a lot of that is cultural. Who's better at school?
Girls.
Yeah, like by far, right? You've been in school for a long time, but is that biological or is that cultural?
Cultural.
It's 100% cultural. It's 100% cultural. There's no difference in natural academic ability between boys and girls. But somehow our culture encourages you to be smart and it encourages boys not to be. I wish I knew how to fix that, but I don't. It's okay. What else can we think about as characteristics of behavioral characteristics? Let's get, if we think about, I'm trying to think of the fellow's name, the guy who does all of the like BBC nature documentaries. He's
David, what's his?
Attenborough, Sir David Attenborough. Okay, so let's imagine we're watching Sir David Attenborough on one of his Planet Earth documentaries, and they're talking about some new species are in the jungle, and they're talking about some species of bird or chimpanzee or marsupial or whatever. They're always talking about what the mating rituals are like. So it's always one sex or the other does the chasing, I suppose, or has a different role, right? Like male peacocks have that flashy big tail thing that the female peacocks don't have because the males are supposed to attract a mate that way by flashing their fancy tail fan things. Seems kind of fun, actually. So, and this exists in almost every species that I can think of. What can we define human gender roles in terms of the mating rituals? How is that supposed to work, Robin?
The men are supposed to like impress the women.
And men are supposed to impress the women, kind of like the peacock.
Yeah, like they do the proposal and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Make all the moves.
Yeah.
Yeah, the men are supposed to make all the moves. But if that's true, then how do you explain makeup? How do you explain fashions? Because it seems like, and again, broadly and on average, that the female of the species puts a lot more work into looking attractive than the male of the species does. Yes? No? So it is true that the male of the species is expected to do the more aggressive pursuing, but I don't know, that the male peacock with the fancy tail kind of makes me think of, bar girls and their gross makeup, right? Like there's a correlation there. So where exactly is the biology on that and where's the culture on that? I don't know. But it's something that we should think about. We can't just accept that because this is the way that we see things work in our culture, that is somehow like part of our DNA. It isn't necessarily. Right? It's more complicated than that. Thoughts or questions on that so far? Okay, I have two readings for you on this subject. And after you have read them, I want to reconvene and discuss what you have read.